What happens when military brass think they're untouchable, meeting in a fortress city that hasn't fallen in over 160 years? September 22nd, 2023 provided a brutal answer that echoed across every Russian command post from Crimea to Moscow. The answer came screaming through the air at nearly the speed of sound, and it wore the name Storm Shadow. Imagine you're a Russian admiral or general summoned to the Black Sea Fleet headquarters in Sevastopol for a critical leadership meeting. You're sitting in what should be one of the most secure military facilities in occupied Crimea, protected by layers of air defense systems. Outside, the S-400 batteries scan the skies. Pantsir systems provide close-range protection. Electronic warfare units work to jam any incoming threats. What could possibly reach you here? Everything, as 34 Russian officers were about to discover. The fortress that became a tomb. Let's set the scene, because understanding where this happened makes the strike even more remarkable. Sevastopol isn't just any city. It's a symbol of Russian naval power dating back centuries. Did you know this city withstood a 349-day siege during the Crimean War? It survived Nazi bombardment during World War II's longest siege. It has been Russia's crown jewel in the Black Sea since Catherine the Great's time. The Black Sea Fleet headquarters sits in the heart of this historic naval fortress. This isn't some temporary command post set up in a commandeered building. We're talking about a purpose-built military facility designed to coordinate naval operations across the entire Black Sea region. The building itself represents generations of Russian naval tradition, with portraits of famous admirals lining the walls and battle flags from historical victories displayed in cases. But here's the irony that should make you pause. All that history, all those defenses, all that symbolism couldn't stop what was coming. Russian military leadership had grown comfortable in Sevastopol. Yes, the war was raging in mainland Ukraine. Yes, Ukrainian forces had already demonstrated they could strike targets in Crimea, but surely the Black Sea Fleet headquarters, protected by multiple layers of air defense, situated in the heart of a city Russia had controlled since 2014, was safe enough for senior officers to gather. This assumption was about to prove fatal. The intelligence game, knowing when to strike. Here's where the story shifts from impressive to absolutely extraordinary. How did Ukrainian intelligence know that September 22nd, 2023 was the perfect moment to strike? We're not talking about hitting an empty building or destroying equipment in storage. Ukraine waited until senior Russian military leadership, admirals, generals, staff officers, were physically present in one location. Think about what that requires. You need human intelligence sources or signals intelligence capabilities sophisticated enough to know when a high-level meeting is scheduled. You need to understand Russian military protocols well enough to predict gathering patterns. You need the patience to wait for the perfect moment rather than striking at the first opportunity. Can you imagine the intelligence discipline that takes? Ukrainian forces had already demonstrated they could hit targets in Sevastopol. They could have struck the headquarters building any time. But they waited. They gathered information. They confirmed when the maximum number of high-value targets would be present in one location. This wasn't just military action. It was military art. Intelligence operatives, whether Ukrainian agents in Crimea, signals intelligence analysts intercepting Russian communications, or satellite reconnaissance specialists, pieced together fragments of information. A scheduled leadership conference, multiple senior officers traveling to Sevastopol, a meeting of critical importance to coordinate Black Sea Fleet operations, and then Ukrainian commanders made the cold calculation. Wait until they're all inside. Wait until the building is full of exactly the people whose loss would most severely damage Russian command and control. Then strike with overwhelming precision. Storm Shadow, the precision instrument of strategic strikes. Let's talk about the weapon that turned intelligence into devastation. By September 2023, Storm Shadow had already earned a fearsome reputation among Russian forces in occupied territories. This wasn't the first time Ukraine had used these British-supplied cruise missiles, but this strike would become the most significant demonstration of their strategic impact. Picture the missile's journey. Somewhere in Ukrainian-controlled territory, a Su-24 bomber takes off. The aircraft is decades old, a Soviet-era design that first flew in the 1960s. But it's been modified with cutting-edge Western systems, transforming this Cold War relic into a platform capable of delivering 21st-century precision weapons. The pilot flies toward the launch zone, staying low to avoid Russian radar detection for as long as possible. Russian air defense systems are active throughout Crimea, scanning for exactly this type of threat. The approach requires nerves of steel and exceptional skill. One mistake, one detection too early, and Russian interceptors or surface-to-air missiles could end the mission before it begins. At the calculated point, the pilot releases the Storm Shadow. Now here's where the technology becomes almost science fiction. The missile drops away from the aircraft, its turbojet engine ignites, and it begins an autonomous journey toward its target over 250 kilometers away. It's not flying in a straight line. That would be too easy to intercept. Instead, it uses terrain-following navigation, GPS guidance, and inertial navigation systems to fly a complex route designed to avoid detection. The missile has been programmed with detailed information about the target, not just coordinates, but the specific building, its construction, where to impact for maximum effect. As it approaches Sevastopol, the missile flies low over the city, giving Russian air defenses minimal reaction time. In the final seconds, an infrared seeker provides terminal guidance, ensuring the weapon hits exactly where intended. Can you imagine being a Russian air defense operator, suddenly seeing an incoming cruise missile on radar with seconds to react? By the time you process what you're seeing, the missile has already struck. The Storm Shadow slammed into the Black Sea Fleet headquarters with devastating effect. The warhead, designed to penetrate hardened structures before detonating, punched through the building's defenses and exploded inside where Russian officers were gathered for their meeting. The moment everything changed. What does it sound like when a command structure collapses? On September 22, 2023, it sounded like explosions echoing across Sevastopol, followed by chaos, confusion, and the shattering realization that nowhere was safe. Reports indicated that 34 Russian officers died in the strike. These weren't junior personnel or support staff. We're talking about senior naval officers, admirals, and staff officers critical to Black Sea Fleet operations. Think about what that means for a military organization. You don't replace that level of experience and expertise with a few promotions and transfers. Each of those officers represented years or decades of institutional knowledge, operational experience, and leadership capability. The immediate tactical impact was severe. The Black Sea Fleet's command structure was decapitated. Officers who survived had to operate in a command environment where senior leadership was suddenly absent. Decision-making processes that relied on specific individuals and their relationships had to be rebuilt on the fly. Operational planning that was underway had to be paused or abandoned as acting commanders tried to establish authority. But the psychological impact? That was even more devastating. Imagine you're a Russian officer stationed anywhere in Crimea after this strike. You've been told repeatedly that Sevastopol is secure. The headquarters of the Black Sea Fleet, one of the most important military installations in the entire region, should be the last place vulnerable to attack. If Ukrainian missiles can reach into the heart of Sevastopol and kill senior officers in their own headquarters, where exactly are you safe? The answer, increasingly clear with each Ukrainian strike, was nowhere. The tactical brilliance, decapitation strikes in modern warfare. Military theorists have discussed decapitation strikes for generations, attacks designed to eliminate enemy leadership and paralyze command and control. But here's the challenge. Actually executing such strikes requires a combination of precise intelligence, advanced weapons, perfect timing, and operational security that's incredibly difficult to achieve. Ukraine managed all of it. The strike on the Black Sea Fleet headquarters represented textbook execution of a decapitation strategy. By eliminating multiple senior officers simultaneously, Ukraine achieved effects far beyond the immediate casualties. Russian naval operations throughout the Black Sea region were disrupted. Replacement commanders had to be identified, briefed, and deployed. The September 22nd attack also demonstrated something crucial about modern warfare. Precision matters more than mass. Ukraine didn't need to carpet bomb Sevastopol or conduct a sustained air campaign. One precisely delivered Storm Shadow missile at exactly the right moment achieved strategic effects that would have required orders of magnitude more firepower using conventional methods. The larger strategic picture. Let's zoom out and understand what this strike meant in the broader context of the war. Why does killing 34 officers in one attack matter when the conflict involves hundreds of thousands of troops? Because modern militaries run on expertise, not just numbers. You can conscript replacement soldiers relatively quickly. You cannot replace experienced senior officers who understand naval operations, logistics, intelligence, and the complex interplay of modern combined arms warfare. Each of those 34 officers represented an investment of decades in training and experience. The strike also sent a message to Russia's international partners and potential adversaries. Countries watching the conflict closely, from China to NATO members, drew conclusions about Russian strength and Ukrainian effectiveness. For Ukraine, the September 22nd strike validated a strategic approach built on precision over mass, intelligence over improvisation, and patience over hasty action. They had waited for the perfect moment, struck with devastating precision, and achieved strategic effects far exceeding the physical damage of the attack itself. The unanswerable question. As smoke cleared over the shattered Black Sea Fleet headquarters and Russian officers scrambled to rebuild their chain of command, one question echoed through the chaos. If Ukrainian missiles could reach here, could they reach anywhere? The answer, every Russian commander in occupied territories realized, was yes. Their sleeping quarters weren't safer than the headquarters in Sevastopol. Their meetings weren't less vulnerable than the ones Storm Shadow had just obliterated. That chilling realization may have been Ukraine's greatest victory, because the most powerful weapon in modern warfare isn't always the one that destroys the most targets. It's the one that destroys the enemy's belief that they can ever be safe. On September 22nd, 2023, Storm Shadow didn't just demolish a command post, it shattered Russia's illusion of security in occupied Crimea. And that's the kind of psychological strike from which no army ever truly recovers. If you found this story powerful, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more in-depth reports and analyses like this.